Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Lead-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO Lead-In. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys. I don't even like that. I don't know why I said journeys like that. I'm starting over. Oh, no. Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO Lead-In. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. Today, we are here with Elizabeth Schott, the CEO of Accessity. Accessity, that is a new word for me. Welcome, Elizabeth. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, Rebecca, for having me. I'm so excited to join you.
Great. Thank you. So I'd like for you to tell us where you came up with that name.
Yeah, so we actually made up a word, and we took the word access, and then we took the ITY from community. And the reason for that is that the nonprofit that I run is about access to capital and financial services, but it's also about surrounding entrepreneurs with a sense of community, as well as a community of resources, support, and education that it can ultimately help them run their business and have success long term.
Which is great, because a lot of new businesses, sometimes they have partners, but if you even have a partner, most of the time you're kind of navigating it yourself. Yeah. And there's a lot of fear in that because it can be very lonely at times, where you've got all of your money tied up in one thing, and then you're worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. So I love that whole holistic sort of well-rounded support system. I think it's a great idea. But I'd like to go back just a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood, the dreaded childhood.
Yeah.
No, just if you have a fun story to kind of break the ice, that would be great for our listeners here today.
Yeah. So when I think back to my childhood, I think of a couple of different things, and I'll relate them a little bit to entrepreneurial paths because I think it's part of why I do what I do in the nonprofit world, supporting entrepreneurs. But I used to pretend in my house, I would take down like everything and anything in my living room, and I would put price tags on it, and I would run a cash register and pretend that I had this store, and then I would have my neighbors come and shop, and I would, pretend I was running a business, or I would, pick things out of my yard and sell them down at the end of my driveway. And I feel like as I got older into college and things, I was always identifying ways to make money and support myself with different things. So I ran a couple of businesses at that point. But I also think back to my mom, because I think one of the things that she was always really involved with was community, right? And just supporting our local schools, supporting local nonprofit organizations. And so I think that blend of really wanting to get ingrained in the community stuck with me and was kind of part of my growing up and who I am today as an adult.
That is so awesome. Funny little story. My daughter, she always wanted, this is the funniest thing, a cash register.
Yeah.
She insisted one year, I don't want anything else except a cash register for Christmas.
Yeah.
So we bought her one of those little Staples cash registers. And I'm not kidding. She would take everything in the house and make it for sale because, of course, she wanted to be a shop owner.
Yeah.
And, she's graduated from USD with a business degree. So I'm looking forward to seeing that little shop that she comes up with. Very fun. And I think a lot of the things that, happen in our childhood and the people around us really shape who we are. And we can kind of point back and say, oh, that made me do this, or that made me think of that, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I have a daughter now who's 9, and prior to the pandemic and now that things are kind of opening back up, I take her a lot with me to work events and different expos if we have a table somewhere, and she learns about being an entrepreneur and, all the different types of businesses. And so, if you ask her like what I do for a living, she says, my mom supports small businesses, and it's just so fun because I think, as a young child, like I think it's important, to talk about different paths for employment. And self-employment is one of those, right? And so I think it's fun to ingrain that and also show the amount that small businesses contribute to our local communities.
Well, in my city, I live in San Marcos, about 90% of all of our businesses are small businesses. Yeah. And I love that. I love that because when you go into a shop that is a small business, many times you can find the owner working there.
Right.
And like one of my local restaurants that I love to go to all the time, I know where the owner's going to be. 90% of the time these days during the pandemic, he started washing dishes because it was necessary and needed.
Right.
And many times I pop my head in and I say hello, and there he is, washing dishes. So, one of the things I think about small businesses that many people don't think about is how hard these small businesses, the owners have to work.
Yeah. Well, and it changes every day, right? I mean, you're trying to find and identify times where you can look at your financial projections or your strategy. But if you have somebody in your kitchen that calls out, or your front hostess, or somebody running your cash register, you have to step in. And so you wear a lot of hats and it's always moving. And I think even coming out of the pandemic, so many entrepreneurs had to shift and become really nimble and find other ways to survive. But the perseverance that we saw in so many of these people, who made it through, and it improved their business a lot, in ways like putting online ordering, mechanisms in and things that they hadn't thought about. And now they're more efficient coming out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. I totally agree with that. So do you have one word that you can think of that really describes who you are?
I think one of the best words is empathetic.
I like that. Mm-hmm. And you don't normally see that actually, it's not that you don't see it, but I think a lot of leaders try to hide that because they don't want to seem weak.
Right.
But I think empathy is actually can be very strong as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've found it's interesting on my leadership journey. I've been leading my organization through different phases for over 15 years, and I've taken a lot of leadership courses and a lot of I've been through coaching programs and things. And one of the things that I've found is that, having some of that feminine energy in an organization and a culture and leading from a place of love instead of fear is something that I truly value. And I think it also, when you're growing a team of people too, it really can contribute to a strong culture where people, at the end of the day, if your people who are working with your organization or your company feel that they're cared about, ultimately entrusted, and you see more productivity on the backside.
Absolutely. And then also if you're working very hard alongside them,
right.
I think it shows them too, guess what? They're not asking me to do something that I wouldn't be willing, or the owner wouldn't be willing to do themselves, which I think is very valuable in just the team building aspect of it. Yeah. So when you think about your, in your current career, how long, or what did you do before Accessity?
Yeah. So prior to Accessity, I was working for a for-profit, more of a media strategy and public relations firm that specialized in hospitality and smaller businesses supporting both nonprofits and hospitality-based businesses. And so I worked primarily in communications and marketing and strategy. And then I actually lived abroad for a couple of years and and did a bunch of different things. I actually did event planning and wedding coordination in Costa Rica for a period of time. But I learned about my previous brand name, which was Acción of my organization. I learned about their work internationally, and I love to travel. It's a passion of mine personally. And I originally thought I was going to work internationally and found out that the mission of Acción, which was microfinance, also had a presence in the United States. And so I ended up finding Acción here in San Diego and really fell in love with the mission from a nonprofit perspective because it was really about teaching people to build their own self-sufficiency through self-employment and access to finance and teaching about credit and financial literacy through that process, ultimately to create generational wealth, for their families in the community.
We need that back in schools, don't we?
Yes, starting literacy. At a young age, for sure.
Yes. So how do you measure success?
So I think there's tangible metrics, and I think it's really important as a leader to have that accountability and a clear vision and plan to have metrics that you're trying to meet. But I also think there's the intangibles that you want to see, right? And so I believe in combining both of those things and really demonstrating that at benchmarks throughout the year, whether that's quarterly, whether that's annually, what you're driving towards. And I think that it's important to showcase both the intangible and the tangible metrics. And so, I think it's important to lay that out at the beginning of the year to your staff and then really execute and benchmark yourself alongside those different metrics.
Definitely. So with success, generally comes failure.
Yeah.
Do you have something you could share with us about maybe a failure that you actually converted into something that was wildly successful?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of different things, and we always call them fascinating challenges in my organization. And I think, I think there's lots of different twists and turns that you have in leading an organization. But I think it's also, if you don't try new things, right, and you don't have failures that you can, like learning moments that you can learn from and pivot, then, you don't grow as an organization, as people and professionals. And so I'll give you a more recent example. It's not quite a success yet, but I think it will be. We've been trying to develop some more niche products for small businesses. And we've been working to do like an energy efficiency loan and a food cart loan. And so we've developed different products and we got involved with different third-party providers. And the products are really to support both small businesses increasing their energy efficiency by replacing like light bulbs and refrigeration systems. And then the food cart loan is really a product that's going to help like food cart vendors, like street vendors. Mm-hmm. And so we developed these products, which I think are going to be successful, but it's hard to also get through the hoops that you need to from a bureaucracy perspective in rolling out a product, right? Yeah. Especially when you're working with third-party partners. And then also really like going to market with a product. And so we have these products that we feel like are really successful in the way that they're designed to meet the needs of entrepreneurs that we're trying to serve, but we haven't yet been able to get them out to market. So I hope that they'll be really successful, but that's an example where we're having to pivot through the design process.
Wow, that sounds great. And, very forward thinking.
Right.
Because most people don't even come up with an idea like that. But now that you've seen the need, I think it's really interesting that you actually are getting into something that's maybe a little bit outside your wheelhouse, though, again, could be very successful and really falling forward in maybe it originally might not have worked out. Maybe just helping people figure that one out. That's very cool. So you said you have children.
I
do. Did you say 3?
I have 3 little ones. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and then I have twin boys that are 5.5.
Oh, wow. So how do you balance it all? Oh.
Yeah. So, it's a lot. There's days where one day I feel like Superwoman and I've done all the things and felt like I've contributed everything 100%. And then there's other days where I want want to like pull my hair out or cry in my car by myself. And, one of the things that I've learned, especially over this period of time of leading a growing organization and having the, responsibility at the end of the day for 30 plus employees and their livelihood, as well as then having, a husband and 3 kids at home, is that usually there's not a perfect balance every day. And I don't strive for that. I strive for what I call alignment in my life. And I try to find the balance for that day or that week of what I need to accomplish. And some weeks that means that I work really long hours to get done what I need to get done, at my office with my organization. And then the next week, if I have a little bit more flexibility, I'm focused on my kids or, and it shifts every day depending on what the needs are. But it's a never ending challenge for sure.
Definitely. Well, I'd like to share with you, my kids are now in their 20s, 22 and 26. And there were definitely days where I thought, I am the biggest failure at being a mother because I was so immersed in my small business that my ex started when our oldest was just 1. But just to give you some encouragement, we really, I think as women are very, very hard on ourselves. And I can tell you for certain, you will look back and you will say the things that I was able to get done as, a small business owner, but then also as a mom, is really incredible. And I think that women have a knack to be able to do that. Yep. And we also need to not be so hard on ourselves. And every single day will look different. Yep. My kids, I kind of have this whole thought in my head, oftentimes anyway. I'm like, well, we didn't have too many bad accidents, broken arms or stitches or things like that. And everyone lived, but they also saw how hard work can propel you forward in life. And I think that is also a very valuable lesson to be teaching your kids. So seeing you in the thick of it, I think is a good thing. For sure.
Absolutely. And I, speaking of ER, I have my twin boys are at the point where they want to wrestle like nonstop. So I usually just kind of close my eyes and I'm like, I hope we're not going to end up in the ER. So I could certainly relate to that. But I think it's really important. I try and involve them as much as possible in what I do and teach them about, running a nonprofit organization. And, I take them to visit the clients, the small businesses that we serve. And, they learn about that entrepreneurial journey, which I think is really important because you're not necessarily taught that in school when you're a kid.
No, not at all. Yeah. And, one of the things that I always do when I'm speaking to young people in my job, I always say, try things that are outside your comfort zone. Yeah. Obviously not that are dangerous. Right. But feel a little dangerous just because you don't feel secure in it. Right. But the truth is you can find something that you're very, very passionate about many times that you don't even know that you would be even entertaining as a thought of a career. And I think that helps you grow, but it also will help you be more happy, I think, in life as far as, trying something, again, that maybe doesn't feel right, but then really feels good once you really get into it.
Yeah, and you see so many times, like, I think to some of the entrepreneurs that we help, and that passion is what shines through in their success as business owners. Definitely. And, at the end of the day, it's their personality as a business owner that then infiltrates into their staff, into their products and service that they offer the community. And I think, so many times people are, young people are feeling like boxed into, I have to do this or I have to do that. And I think at the end of the day, if you can marry something that supports you financially, that you're also really passionate about, that it will bode well for you, like long term, to be successful and enjoy every day. Right.
Well, and it also creates a culture within your employees when you're happy. Right. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've worked jobs where I'm thinking, I can't believe how miserable that person is. Everyone around them is affected by that.
Absolutely. It's an energy, right? Yeah. And I think, and I think that's important as a leader to look at how do you do you focus on that and surround your employees with that support and that energy? And sometimes it's hard because as a business owner or running an organization, sometimes you can feel isolated because it's a lot of weight on your shoulders. But I think at the end of the day, if you also can show as a leader that you're vulnerable sometimes and that you don't have all the answers and that you involve your employees and your staff in solving those problems, it oftentimes can work out to the benefit.
And I think that's one thing that women do very well is to show that authenticity and the, you know what? I don't know everything.
Right.
I'm trying. We're going to spitball here.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes, we're going to figure out, we're going to try things because really that's how great ideas are formed and implemented.
Yeah.
By trying things.
Yep.
So as a woman, do you ever feel like there's resistance in folks around you, mainly men, or not so much?
Yeah, so I've had an interesting journey. When I started leading my organization, I was in like my mid to late 20s. And I'm also in the financial services industry. And so I was on a huge learning curve when I took leadership in my organization, and I was fairly young in my career. And most of the rooms that I was in were male dominated, and I was also a lot younger walking into a room. And so, I found that sometimes I had to build my confidence, right, walking in and having conversations in those rooms. But I also and had to build my knowledge and connections within the community. And so sometimes I felt like I wasn't necessarily taken seriously. Like I would walk in a room and people would say, "Oh, what do you do? And, what's your title?" And I would introduce myself as our executive director, our CEO. And every once in a while, I'd kind of get somebody that kind of stepped back and there was surprise on their face, right? And so, I had to work through that. And I think that was part of my leadership journey, was building that confidence and also, recognizing that if I didn't know the answer, that was okay. I was going to surround myself and find somebody who did know the answer and learn from it and jump at those opportunities. But sometimes that was hard.
Well, and that kind of leads me to the next question, too. So mentors, role models, do you have several or a few that you can point back to say, they helped shape me, they helped me grow, and this is why I am here today?
Yeah, we already talked a little bit about my mom just being involved in the community. And just her sense of engagement and contribution in the community. But I think one of my first bosses was an entrepreneur. She ran the public relations and communication strategy firm that I worked for. And she was constantly focused on, of course, we had our for-profit clients that were paying clients, but she was also really focused on providing pro bono services to the nonprofit community. And I worked with her right out of college, and she allowed me to jump into her business, like feet first, into so many different aspects of the business. So I didn't just learn about what my particular role was, but she really engaged me in, client presentations and the financials of the business, and really learning about marketing and identifying prospects and lead generation for our business. So I think she really shaped how I jump into all different aspects of running an organization, and that was really interesting to me. And that's still what I do today, leading my own organization. But then the other resource and mentor that I have locally, my coach was Alberto from Mama's Kitchen, the CEO. And he was a coach through the Fieldstone Network here locally. And he's really been a mentor of mine in just, growing a staff, learning about running an organization. And I've had so many different resources that I've taken through the Fieldstone Network as well, with Janine Mason. And so I really rely on a lot of those resources and have grown tremendously as a leader through that.
So I've had a lot of great mentors myself. Yeah. I've also had people that I've learned from that were more of an example of, okay, I don't ever want to do that.
Yeah.
Do you have that too?
Yeah, when I think back to the different bosses or leaders that I've worked with, and I've been fortunate that many of them have been truly wonderful examples. But I've also watched other organizations and companies, or even brands and cultures, where I've seen that, I think I watched the employees and the morale, and a lot of times, using tactics that are punitive more than supportive in an organization. And I know, and I've learned that that's not the leader that I want to be. Right. So just by witnessing those different things, but I've been fortunate the ones that I've worked alongside have been very encouraging. Yeah.
Well, when you look at leaders and you think about bosses that you've had in the past that maybe were negative, it's very demoralizing to everyone around them. I mean, kind of back to the point of one negative person can really spoil a whole organization.
It can.
And so for me, I look at those negative people and I think, okay, I don't ever want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to be the opposite of that, because the truth is people are more productive when they're happy, when they're encouraged, and when they feel like they belong and you appreciate them.
Right. And I think, you truly also just want to show that you care. And a lot of that comes down to communication and getting to know people, right? I think one of the things that we focus on our organization is getting to know each of our employees and really trying to figure out what drives each person individually, because everybody's different, right?
That's right.
And what one person cares about is not what the other person cares about. And not that you can, always cater to every single thing, but I think as much as you can learn about your staff, the more productivity you end up having on the back end.
Definitely. So lessons learned. What are some lessons that you could share with us that will help encourage other women to maybe apply those same things in their life?
Yeah, so I think definitely surrounding yourself both personally and professionally with a network of people that are really, that you can, one, know things that you don't know or are well-versed in areas that you don't know, and that you can just lean on for support, right? For me, other nonprofit CEOs, it's really helpful to just share best practices, trade notes, but also really good friends, girlfriends. I have great friends.
It's a village.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
And in the world of motherhood, it takes a village for sure, of other moms. And for me, it's been really helpful to connect with other, moms who are running a business or a career and also balancing family. And I think that support network is vital for survival, right? Emotionally and physically.
Well, let's not forget you have twin boys.
Yes.
So definitely when you're in the midst of twin boys, and I don't know what your sons are like. My son was always so curious. He is amazing. Yeah. He always was trying to find out how things worked and why they were a certain way. Yeah. And he always loved animals, and he was a very outdoorsy kind of kid. Yeah. Always trying to, this is my friend, Mom. He's this, he's that, lizards and whatnot. Yeah. And I'd be like, oh, wow, I'd come home. Oh, there's a snake in the house. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I've had multiple times where, my kids like to leave the doors open. And obviously here in San Diego, not the past couple days, but, generally we leave our doors open while we're home and they're playing and running in and out of the house. We've had a couple of critters in our house for sure that we've had to corner and get back outside, like lizards. And they love to catch that stuff, but they're full of energy for sure. And
so fun.
And then, my daughter's really creative and loves art, and she's also full of energy. So I think one of the other things that I've learned, and this is hard, and I think a lot of women can relate, is the power of saying no. Because at the end of the day, you got to keep yourself healthy. And so especially as I've navigated the alignment between career and family and all of that, I've had to say no to a lot of things. And I've had to really also focus on the fact that it's no right now. Like, for example, I would love to go and volunteer in the community right now, but I just don't have the time. Like, I have very limited, and I'm involved in my son's school, for example, but I have extremely limited time just in my bandwidth. And so I've had to really coach myself, like, that's okay. I'm in a period of life where I have some big responsibilities right now, and those consume a lot of my time. And later on in life, I'll be able to do other things that contribute to my community. So,
well, you just actually answered my next question, which it's advice.
Yeah.
And so advice is very important about the power of no for now. And our lives go in seasons. I mean, truly.
Right.
Like, I'm in a completely different season than you. You know, my kids are grown and they're off and they're, doing their own thing.
Right.
But I remember the moments where I was like, oh gosh, I feel so overwhelmed. Motherhood can be so tough at times.
Yep.
And I didn't have a family system that could help me. So then it became my girlfriends, the village mentality. I think it's really important to be able to lean on your community, your tribe, your village, whatever you want to call it. I think and it's okay. Yeah. We don't have to feel bad about it. We don't have to feel like, oh, we can do everything right now, because again, the seasons, they change.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really do. So I want to know what's next on your journey, because I think you're always kind of thinking, and part of it might have to do with the not now today, but really, what are some thoughts pinging around in your head of what your next steps are going to be?
Yeah, so right now I'm really focused. Our organization, from a professional standpoint, our organization is growing from a regional standpoint. And I also feel like, coming out of the pandemic, there's so many entrepreneurs that are still recovering, right? Yep. And with all the things happening, both from staffing and cost and inflation and everything, I'm really seeking for our organization to have larger impact, both in our existing and historical territory, which is San Diego, but now we're a fully Southern California regional organization, all the way up to LA and out to Imperial and the Inland Empire. So professionally, I'm really looking at growing our impact as a full regional Southern California organization. And I think it's going to be vital for the small business community, coming out of the last couple of years. So I'm really focused on impact and driving more metrics. And personally, I'm really trying to just soak up the ages that my kids are, and every moment to, savor them wanting to hang out with me between the ages, because I know once teenage years get there, it's a whole different ball game. And so I'm focusing on really trying to be present and slowing down in those moments and savoring that. And then the last thing that I would share is I have historically loved to travel, and I shared with you that that's a passion. Yes. But obviously, I came off of having twins and a 3-year-old, and then the pandemic happened. And so literally for the last 5 years, I've done local travel, but I love international travel as well as domestic. And I have goals to go to multiple different places in the next 2 years just to get back on the travel game.
And they will get there. The kids will get there. You start with little things,
right.
And
they can all carry their own little backpacks now, right. And I'm hands free at this point.
It's the car seats. The
car seats. We're done with those. So we're on to another stage with that. It was so freeing when I was able to take those big things out of my car.
Yes, absolutely, and it's much easier to travel without the car seats.
Absolutely.
But I really like all that you had to say, but one thing that I would tell you is it's true. When those days are gone from the kids being little, you're going to have some hard times in between. I want to encourage you in this.
Yeah.
You're going to have some hard times in between where they're like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. And you look at it and you think, how is it that sweet little baby that I gave birth to now doesn't want to spend time with me?
Right.
They do. They come back around.
Yeah.
And they do appreciate a lot of things that you did and values that you've instilled in them.
Yeah.
When you look back, there are going to be moments where you're going to think, I can't get through one more moment. It just isn't going to happen. But I want to encourage you, when you start listening to them as they become adults and their own people, really becoming their own people, which, for girls, it's a little bit earlier than boys. I think boys are just a little bit later in that. you're going to look back, and when they start saying things that values that you've instilled in them, you look at them and you think, oh my gosh, they were listening. This is so awesome to hear, you know. I mean, it really is short. Gosh, it's like you just blink and then they're graduating college.
Right. Yeah, and it's got to, I've heard so many different, things like what you just shared, and that's why I'm trying to really like pause and be present. And, there's some times where like things will get stressful and work gets busy, and, I'm like, that phone call can wait till tomorrow because it's more important that I get home and I savor like helping my kids with their homework and get them tucked in bed, and like that call will be there tomorrow, and, and not feeling guilty about that. So I've really taken that to heart from so many parents that have shared wisdom like yourself with older ones. And, I'm excited about that journey, but it certainly has its twists and turns. And right now we have a lot of fighting going on in our house because there's, my daughter gets all of her stuff set up in her room, and then my boys go in and just mess it all up, and whose is what, and taking things from each other. So we're in the thick of that right now.
It'll pass. Yeah, it'll pass. I promise. Yep. Thank you so much for some great conversation. Yeah. Very good advice, and being present is really important, and taking that time to be with your family and really enjoying it, because really those days when they're gone, you're going to say, Darren, I want those back. Right. I want those moments back. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Really appreciate our time together. And thank you. Really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.